Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're going to take a look at two of the newly buffed Pokemon for the Open Great League in Steelix with its newly added Breaking Swipe, which costs the same amount of energy as Psychic Fangs, but it does significantly more damage, moving it all the way up to 12th on the PvPoke rankings. Definitely an upgrade, although it does have some different play with Breaking Swipe because it lowers the opponent's attack stat instead of their defense stat. So you can still make a case for Psychic Fangs, I think, but Breaking Swipe is definitely an upgrade. And then also Shadow Magnezone with Volt Switch, which is a significant upgrade in my opinion, because it generates the same amount of energy as Spark used to do, but it does so much more damage, giving it so much more farm down potential. These two Pokemon have a lot of the same weaknesses, mainly in ground and fighting types, so I've chosen to pair them with Pelipper in the lead. You use Steelix to lure out the fighting / ground type, so you can deal with it. With Pelipper, you absolutely cannot let your Pelipper go in the lead generally, unless you've already seen the Pokemon you need to take care of. And then you can try and set up Shadow Magnezone for the sweep. And Shadow Magnezone is just insane. So many insane nukes. Let's take a look at the battles. Going into the first game, we lead into a Blastoise. I have chosen to include one of these rank 1 weird battles where we run into a Bite Blastoise of all things. Don't worry, I have edited out all the other ones because these weird battles are not really what we're here for. But I go for the Weather Ball bait after going up to the Hurricane because generally in rank 1 people have a tendency sometimes to just shield basically everything. And then I bait them once again with the Weather Ball and they just no-shield everything. They bring in a Gyarados with Dragon Breath and we bring in Magnezone and we just absolutely chunk it down with Volt Switch. And that is a good game. Very nice. That was like one of my first games, but now I think we're already into rank 2 because most of the first games were very weird. We run into a Steelix, and very importantly here in this game, usually I want to swap out to try and draw out a fighting / ground or something like that, but I absolutely cannot get Magnezone onto the Steelix, so I kind of have to stay in with Pelipper here and pretty much hope there's not a fighting / ground type in the back. As we go for the fourth Weather Ball and also the second one, they did go straight for the Breaking Swipe, lowering our attack, meaning this is actually a pretty good matchup for Steelix. I try to catch the move on Steelix after putting their Steelix low enough to where I'm comfortable letting my Magnezone see it later on. They go for the Earthquake, I didn't catch the move unfortunately, and then they swap into a Sableye, and we go up to the Earthquake, and then we bait with a Breaking Swipe, and this does grab the shield from the Sableye. Not only do we lower their attack and grab the shield, that also allows us to get to the Earthquake as well. And although Steelix is a very bulky Pokemon, this does massive damage. And then I make a bit of a mistake. I should definitely just bring in Magnezone because they're a back-to-back foul play here. If I bring in my Magnezone and sneak in the Volt Switch, they will definitely get knocked out by that. But the wing attack doesn't quite knock them out. So yeah, I have to take both of them. If I just knock them out, they only get off one. But yeah. Then we can bring in the Magnezone afterwards, get one full Volt Switch worth of energy, and then in the back, it is a Pelipper, and these Volt Switches are just absolutely chunking. They try to catch a move in their Steelix, so we just farm down the Steelix, and then we farm down the Pelipper as well afterwards, and we didn't even need to throw a charge move. That is a very good game. Next game, lead into a Noctowl. Again, in these low rank battles, I did experience a lot of people just try and throw their moves immediately. So I want to swap out at some point. I choose to stay in so I can try and catch the Sky Attack on my Steelix on my way out. And we do catch a Shadow Ball, unfortunately. And then they bring in a Stunfisk. And because we took that Shadow Ball, regular Steelix, one of the reasons why I'm running it is because it can live in Earthquake from Stunfisk relatively comfortably. But after taking the Shadow Ball as well, that is no longer the case. So they just take out Steelix. But that's okay, we've lured out the Stunfisk, which is absolutely amazing for Magnezone, and then we can bring in the Pelipper and go for the second Weather Ball on the CMP. Of course it takes 8 for the Earthquake and then 5 for the Rock Slides. So we can't even let this go. We've lured out the Stunfisk. If there's another ground or fighting type in the back, that's not ideal, but usually, like most of the time, there's only one. So letting Pelipper get low, hoping that Magnezone can sweep once the Stunfisk is gone, is often a pretty good strategy as we go for this third Weather Ball on CMP as well. Bring in the Magnezone, they're staying in with Noctowl, and look at these Volt Switches once again. They can make it to the Shadow Ball, but it always takes 7 for the Shadow Ball. It takes 7, 6, 6, 6 for the Sky Attack now, by the way. And then we can just farm them all the way down after shielding that one Shadow Ball in the back. They're ABA, weak to Magnezone. We get to the Wild Charge on this Azumarill, and it does massive damage. And then we can just Volt Switch down the Azumarill afterwards as well. Magnezone with the sweep. Very nice. Next game, lead into the core breaker in Unova Stunfisk. I didn't really expect to see this, so I didn't team build around it, but this thing beats everything on my team comfortably. In the moment, I thought that Pelipper couldn't live a discharge. It actually turns out it only does about 90%. So I shield it up. They bring in a Dragon Tail Gyarados. We bring in Magnezone. They go for an Aqua Tail. We know that they have a Mud Bomb user in the back. Don't want to shield this Aqua Tail as we just found them all the way down. And then I should have definitely gone for the Wild Charge. Even though Wild Charge is triple resisted, it still does more than a single resisted Mirror Shot. And I should have also gone for it immediately to lower my defense. But we do get the attack drop, which is pretty nice. I'm thinking they have Discharge, which can one-shot my Pelipper, or almost. And they also have Mud Bomb, which only does about 33% when it's not attack drop. So I bring in my Steelix, and then they go for a Discharge. Wait, what? Oh, it's because they have Muddy Water. Of course you run Muddy Water on your Unova Stunfisk. Yeah, okay, I did include some other weird games, but this is a pretty good one. They also shield up Breaking Swipe. Opponent in absolute shambles at this point, because the Muddy Water did so little damage. You should definitely run Discharge and Mud Bomb on your Unova Stunfisk. I know that a Shadow Bone or a Shadow Ball is not enough to take me out from this range, especially not debuff, so just let it go. And then they go for the Bone Cloth bait just to, yeah, I think my opponent likes being in shambles, or I'm not quite sure, but yeah. Even now, if this is a Shadow Bone, Pelipper can still live it. There's no real reason to shield it, so yeah, just no shield it. They actually get the defense drop. We overfarm and then get to another Weather Ball. I think I had to throw this, otherwise they would have been able to get to another move. We take out the Alola Marowak, then we can bring in the Steelix and just Dragon Tail down the Unova Stunfisk. Very luckily, they didn't have Mud Bomb. That was very, very nice. Next game, we lead into an Altaria. It takes 17 Dragon Breath instead of 15 Dragon Breath for the Altaria to get to their Sky Attack. So I do 8 Wing Attacks, bring in the not the Registeel. I wonder if I want to call this Registeel. I bring in the Steelix to catch the Sky Attack. And we also sneak in a Dragon Tail, and then they bring in a Swampert. Nice that we lure out the Swampert, but of course, not ideal that it is in the back in the first place. Go for the Breaking Swipe. I think I'm used to Breaking Swipe doing a lot more damage because it comes from a Stab Haxorus, which is a very squishy Pokemon, but non-stab from a Steelix, it really doesn't do a lot of damage as I try to go for the second one on the CMP, which we're of course going to lose to the Swampert. So the Steelix goes down, we bring in the Pelipper, and then we can do 4 more Wing Attacks and then go for the Weather Ball. It looked like the CMP, they really shouldn't be at the Hydro Cannon, making me think they probably had Muddy Water once again. Go for the Hurricane as the Altaria comes in to either do massive damage or give Magnezone a shield advantage, which Magnezone with a shield advantage does pretty much good against pretty much everything, except for Galarian Stunfisk, and it's double ground in the back. Of course, there are certain teams that you basically can't beat with this team, although, wait, the opponent shielded a move from Magnezone, and you can just no-shield everything and farm all the way down, come up with 100 energy, but now they only come out with 3 Mudshots worth of energy and they're down a shield. Do we actually have a chance of beating a double ground team? Let's see. It does take 5 for the Rock Slide, so we can't go for the CMP here, but we do need to get to 3 Weather Balls because they still have a shield and they only need to get to 2 more Rock Slides. So they should be 5 away here, meaning, if I'm counting correctly, the only win con we have is if they try to go for a catch unnecessarily on their Altaria. Come on, opponent. Go for the catch. They're 2 away from the Mudshots. Or from the Rock Slide. We won't be able to outpace them. They don't go for the catch. I was really hoping they would go for the catch unnecessarily and we could farm them down, come out with the Weather Ball. But no, they just go for the Rock Slide. And my first loss of the season came in rank 2 against a double ground team. I can live with that. Next game, lead into a Carbink. And we swap into Registeel. No, Steelix. This thing is called Steelix. They respond with a Medicham. Yikes. Very yikes. They go for a nice punt. Steelix needs to land a Breaking Swipe and an Earthquake, but what I found was that if you go for the Breaking Swipe first, most people just think you don't have Earthquake, so you can just go for the Earthquake afterwards, and obviously winning Switch here would be amazing because Magnezone is a really good counter to Carbink, so we go straight for the Earthquake afterwards, and we just take out the Medicham and we get Switch. This happened 3 times. Like, all 3 times where I faced a Medicham as a counter swap to my Steelix, they just no-shielded my Earthquake. And then I just won Switch in the Zero Shield scenario. Bringing the Magnezone on the Carping, we did get a debuff off, attack debuff off on it, so the Moonblast does a little bit less damage, although Magnezone is really squishy, so it still did quite a lot of damage. They go for the catch on Venusaur, very nice catch by the opponent, but now we can just farm up again with the Magnezone, because the Venusaur is still not as a move, and then we can bring in the Pelipper. We of course have to shield once, because a Frenzy Plant from a Shadow Venusaur would just do way too much damage. But then we can just farm them all the way down right before they make it to another move, come out with some energy on Pelipper as well, and we still have 2 moves stored on Shadow Magnezone, meaning if we can grab a shield from this thing, we should be absolutely golden, as they let me get to another Weather Ball, which they have to shield. And at this point, the game is just over, because Magnezone will of course win CMP, and we could just go for the first one, even if they have back-to-back, which is not possible because they just threw their Rock Slide. We will just be able to get both of these off on CMP both times, but they know that we have too much energy, so they just let their Carping go, and that is a good game. Next game, we lead into Pelipper. I think you can make a case for just swapping into Steelix immediately here, but I stay in, and I go for a very risky bait. I found that at these low ranks, people just tend to shield way too often, as I also shield the first move, and it just happens to be the Hurricane. Very nice shield, and we go for the bait. Can we get the shield? Yes, we can. And then we swap into Steelix, because of course we need to check if there is a fighter or a Mud Boy in the back or something like that. They don't have any of those. They have a Victory Bell, and this is a quite comfortable matchup for Steelix. We go for the Breaking Swipe, does big damage to the Victory Bell, and then they go up to 10, and then they go for a move. People tend to throw their moves immediately here, making me think this is a Leaf Tornado, and it is, because they would throw off the 9 if there was a Leaf Blade, and then we could just farm them all the way down. Luckily, we didn't get the debuff. They did do 2 wing attacks before swapping out, so they should be at the Weather Ball now. After 4, it's 9 for the Hurricane, then 4 for the Weather Ball, but we're just gonna let this go, and they should still be switch locked, I think, so we can bring in the Magnezone to farm them all the way down. These Vault Switches just do absolutely crazy damage in the back. It's a Shadow Alola Ninetales, and this takes quad effective damage from Mirror Shot, so although this is a trash move, Mirror Shot one-shots the Alola Ninetales, and that is a very good game. Next game, lead into a little bit of a core breaker, but let me show you how evil Pelipper can be towards Registeel. Because in the 2 shield scenario, this is actually not too bad of a matchup. Pelipper does have to expend 2 shields before Registeel has to expend even 1. But if you do play into the 2 shield scenario, you either leave the Registeel very low, or you just take it out. So we go for the second Weather Ball. Unfortunately, we got the Zap Cannon debuff, which is really not ideal. But now we can overfarm a lot. I know that I'm going to have to shield this move, so I would rather keep hold of the energy, because I know that I have to throw 2 Weather Balls regardless. So if they take the second shield and then swap out, I want energy instead of just throwing my energy and then shielding. So now we can go for the first Weather Ball, and then right before they get to another Zap Cannon, we get to the second Weather Ball. We have 2 stored here, so if they want to preserve the Registeel, they have to shield twice. If they don't shield, yes, we are 2 shields down, but we come out with energy and a bunch of HP on Pelipper, because we've only taken lock-on damage. Of course, I want to dip out to see if there's a fighter or something like that in the back, and also to clear my debuffs on Pelipper. So we swap out into Steelix, and then they swap into a Shadow Venusaur. They went up to 12 Vine Whips, so a CMP tie them on the first Frenzy Plant, so that I can make sure I get off this Breaking Swipe. And this will either do, it actually doesn't do that much damage. You would think Shadow Venusaur would take a lot of damage from it, but Breaking Swipe non-stab from a Steelix doesn't do all that much. But here, they did 2 Shadow Claws on their Sableye before swapping into Venusaur. It is double debuffed with their attack. If I get in one Volt Switch before they get in their Sableye, I will be able to outpace to the Wild Charge against this Sableye. So we can do 1 Volt Switch as they go for the Frenzy Plant with Venusaur. And then we're going to be able to get to this Wild Charge on Sableye, and it one-shots the Sableye. We swap into Pelipper, and we farm down the Shadow Venusaur. And that is another very good game. Into a Lickitung at the next one, another game where I want to swap out, but I want to see if they want to allow me to... Wow, these sentences are very good. I want to see if they will allow me to catch a move on my Steelix. Unfortunately, they keep hold of a lot of energy on the Lickitung, and then they bring in a Deoxys, which is really not ideal. With the lick damage, this is a little bit of a worse matchup. Steelix can, according to the Sims, win all even shield scenarios. It's not as simple as that, because in the 2 shields, apparently Deoxys goes straight Psycho Boost, like immediately. So that Probably not, but we can go for the Breaking Swipe first. This works the exact same as the Medicham matchup. You do need one Breaking Swipe and then an Earthquake as well. Unfortunately, the opponent does shield up this time with their Deoxys, but we can make it to another Breaking Swipe to put the Deoxys very low. They have a lot of energy, even though they're debuffed. We don't want to take a Thunderbolt onto Pelipper, so go for the Weather Ball immediately to either force them to expend this last shield or to just take them out. They don't want to spend the last shield, so we just take them out. Bring in the Magnezone, expecting a Medicham in the back, because that's a team that I've seen some people talk about. And it is the Medicham at the back. We catch the Body Slam, which is very nice, and we still just about make it to the Wild Charge, which does massive damage onto the Medicham. We can bring back in the Pelipper. They do load up to a Psychic, so this is the move we want to shield. It's only an Ice Punch. I don't think they're running Psychic, but now we get a big farm down. I've seen some people want to go for the Hurricane here. Weather Ball is only marginally less DPE than Hurricane, so if they still have a shield, just go Weather Ball. It's so risky to go for the Hurricane if they have a shield. Whereas if they no shield a Weather Ball, it doesn't really make much of a difference. But they load up to the back-to-back Body Slam. I know they have too much energy at this point, so I just let the Body Slam go. And unfortunately, double ground backline was very difficult earlier. Double fighting backline, also very difficult. Next game, lead into a Sableye. Elite, where I think I would probably just swap out immediately next time, but this time I try to catch a move once again on Steelix. I do like to use it as like a sponge, but yeah. They bring the Quagsire, not ideal. It looks like 2 Mud Bombs might be just about enough. I do have to go for this Breaking Swipe on bad timing if I want to threaten the Earthquake, because they were 4 away from the Mud Bomb. So I go for the Breaking Swipe on bad time. We actually grab a shield with it, and now the Mud Bomb, because of the attack drop, the Mud Bomb doesn't take me out, so we can just about make it to an Earthquake as well on the Quagsire, and this will actually do quite a lot of damage on the Quagsire. Doesn't quite take them out, but they're at a Stone Edge and they're very low, so I'm anticipating that they're gonna go for the Stone Edge immediately, so I actually bring in the Magnezone, and I very riskily no shielded. If it is a Mud Bomb, it just takes me out. It's the Stone Edge, very nice. In the back, they have a Kanto, a Alolan Ninetales. Yikes. So we swap into Pelipper, they bring in Sableye, they have 10 Shadow Claws worth of energy now because they still have all that from earlier. I tried to CMP tie them here to see who would win CMP because it's quite IV dependent. Apparently they don't have the best Sableye, so they do win CMP. So what I should do here, because it's 665 for the foul place, I should go for the next one on 3 so I can get to the second one on 4. Instead, I go for it after 4, meaning the next one will be a CMP if they shield this. But what this does, as you can see, the Sableye takes out my Pelipper. This allows me to get in the last Volt Switch I need on Shadow Magnezone. And you're gonna see the absolute power of Shadow Magnezone. This is not a squishy Pokemon in Ninetales. We go for the Wild Charge and we one-shot the Ninetales. And that was a lot more fun than just winning with Pelipper. I think you would agree. So that's a GG. Next game, lead into a Medicham. Very good lead with Pelipper, of course, and they're staying in. You can take a Psychic. If they grab a shield from you and then swap out, it's going to be a lot more difficult to keep alignment. So I choose to no-shield it, even though I was expecting the Psychic. They actually go for the Ice Punch, which is absolutely fine by me. And once again, it's just a lot more risk-free to go for the Weather Balls, because if they no-shield the Weather Ball, I can just go for another one to take them out. If they shield a Hurricane, that's a lot of energy to give up, as we shield up their Ice Punch and go for another Weather Ball right before they get to another Ice Punch. I think they're 1 away here, so we can farm them all the way down afterwards. Then they bring in a Registeel, and this is not ideal. This team is kind of weak to Registeel. Our best response to Registeel is Shadow Magnezone in the 2-shield scenario, but we don't really have a good response to Registeel in the 1-shield scenario, as they go for a Focus Blast. Good thing our Steelix is not Shadow, because we can take the Focus Blast and make it to the Earthquake here with Steelix. We still have a lot of energy on the Pelipper, of course, and they shield up the Registeel and then bring in a Shadow Swampert. We can just about make it to a Breaking Swipe before they farm us down, but now they're going to come out with a lot of energy on Swampert, and this game is going to come down to who wins CMP, Pelipper or Swampert. It is IV dependent. My Pelipper is a little bit too good, and I lose CMP. And this is really bad, because now I have to give up a shield in order to take out the Swampert. I could have maybe no-shielded, tried to go up to like almost back-to-back Wild Charges on Shadow Magnezone, because a Wild Charge would KO from this range, as we see a very nice undercharge, if I do say so myself. But at this point, in the zero shield scenario, the Registeel simply has too much energy, so we can't make it to a wild charge. Magnezone dishes out a lot of damage, but it also takes a lot of damage. And the Focus Blast, of course, one shot. And we do lose that game, unfortunately. Next game, very good lead into a Shadow Beetle. Our entire team beats the Shadow Beetle as they save swap a Medicham into Pelipper. I'm thinking my Pelipper is going to see a lot of use in this matchup if they are save swapping a Medicham. So I shield up the first move, my opponent realizing that my Pelipper is very valuable to me, so they bait me with a Power Up Punch. So they should be one away from the next Psychic, or from the Psychic here, so I go for the Hurricane, knowing that I can either take them out or grab a shield, and even if they shield it and bait me again, they will still be 5 away from the Psychic at this point, so it's pretty risk-free once again, because I will be able to make it to a Weather Ball before they make it to a Psychic. They are not at the Psychic here because they threw the Psychic, so this is only a Power Up Punch after 5, so we can't let it go. Then they bring in a Toxapex, I load up to a Hurricane, bring in Shadow Magnezone, and are you ready to see some absolute madness from this Shadow Magnezone? We take the Brine, doesn't do all that much damage to Shadow Magnezone, and then we farm up to back Wild Charge, throw the first one into Toxapex. We don't really want to take any counters from Medicham, so I'm standing still for a little bit, and then we go for the Mirror Shot before the counter registers, and this will of course take out the Medicham as well. In the back there is still the Shadow Beetle, and we get to yet another Wild Charge on the Shadow Magnezone, and you guessed it, the Shadow Wild Charge is gonna take out the Beetle, and that is a very nice sweep by Shadow Magnezone. Next game, lead into Deoxys. I would say a pretty good lead, but we really don't want to see it on Magnezone. Once again, they go for the move after 5. They can only be a Psycho Boost. It still does quite a lot of damage, but if I shield early, it's going to be more difficult to keep switch. They bring in a Dugong, and I'm already thinking it's going to be an Umbreon in the back. Bring in Shadow Magnezone as they go for a Drillbun. I would definitely go for a bait here because I have to shield because they have a move that can one-shot me. So it just makes a lot of sense for them to bait with Icy Wind to lower my attack. As I go for the Wild Charge, it takes 5, then 4, then 5 for the Dugong. So we can shield this up, and then there should be 5 away from the next one. It is an Icy Wind, nice bait by my opponent, but now we can farm them all the way down. And as I said, I'm very much expecting there to be an Umbreon in the back. So I don't really need to stay in with my Magnezone against this Deoxys, because Steelix actually doesn't have a bad matchup against Deoxys, so I can bring in the Pelipper, do 3 more wing attacks because they were dry, and then go for the Weather Ball right before they make it to the Psycho Boost to take out the Deoxys. The opponent should know that I have a Wild Charge in the back on my Magnezone, so they shouldn't shield this up, so I go straight for the Hurricane, but my opponent does shield this up. And then I make a very kinky play. They throw on good timing, so I throw 4 wing attacks, wait a turn, and then go for the Weather Ball to leave them, like to go for the CMP to leave them with less energy. Either they have to undercharge now, or they have to take me out. They take me out, and they come out with only 2 snarls worth of energy. And then we bring in Steelix. This is actually a very good matchup for Steelix against Umbreon, especially if you can land the moves correctly, of course. Now they have no shields, and we also have a Wild Charge stored on Shadow Magnezone, so we're just gonna go straight for the Earthquake. As we can see, these foul plays just doing absolutely no damage to this little wall of a Pokemon. I'm gonna call it Wall 2.0 because of course the wall is Bastiodon, I think also Registeel, but Steelix is also in the same category as we combo play with a Wild Charge and take out the Umbreon, and that is a good game. Next game, lead into another Lickitung. I'm praying for it not to be another double counter user. Try to catch the Body Slam once again. Once again, they bring in Medicham. God damn it. But they go for a move here after, I think, 7, if I remember correctly. And no, 8, because it's a Psychic. I remember incorrectly. And then we can go for this Breaking Swipe. Once again, once people see the Breaking Swipe, they just assume you're going to go for the Earthquake if you have it. Because the Medicham doesn't have to shield the Earthquake. They can live an Earthquake and still take out the Steelix. But after a Breaking Swipe and an Earthquake, this takes out the Medicham. And we grab Switch Advantage, which, if it's double counter, can be very nice. Bring in the Magnezone. This is not like an amazing matchup for Magnezone, but we do wall all of their charge moves, so we can take this Body Slam, go for 1 more Volt Switch, and this is what I mean with it being clunky. Because we went for 1 more Volt Switch, we take 3 counters worth of damage, which almost just takes out Magnezone. Then bring in the Pelipper. Of course, we have to shield this move. Surf Edge does absolutely massive damage, and then we can overfarm 2 right before they make it to another move and then go for the Weather Ball. I didn't want to go for the Weather Ball before they got to their move because then it wouldn't take them out, so I would rather overfarm. And then once again, Weather Ball and Hurricane do almost the same DPE, so if they still have a shield, there is just no point in going for the big move. It's high risk, low reward. So yeah, I go for the Weather Ball, they do shield it up, and now because they don't have any shield, Hurricane is slightly higher DPE because it does exactly double the damage of Weather Ball, but for 5 less energy than double Weather Ball. So we can't go for this Hurricane into the Lickitung. This is going to be very close. It doesn't quite take out the Lickitung. We bring in the Shadow Magnezone, we Volt Switch down the Lickitung, and we beat double counter, and that is a good game. That was the last battle for today, and overall this team worked out alright for me, but it's not like the best team in the world. Obviously Shadow Magnezone is not the best Pokemon in Open Great League, although I think it's genuinely a pretty good Pokemon for Open Great League, and it is a ton of fun to use, as you could probably see by this video. Steelix definitely doesn't deserve to be 12th on the PV Poke rankings for Open Great League, although it is also pretty good, and it is an upgrade with Breaking Swipes. It's not that good. Fun fact of the day though, the reason why I ran Steelix over Shadow Steelix is because I can take an Earthquake from Galarian Stunfisk, a Focus Blast from Registeel, and it also wins the Zero Shields versus Water Gun Lantern, although that is a little bit IV dependent. If you like this video, remember to leave a like. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel. And of course, a massive thank you to the members of the channel. Your support is very much appreciated. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.